My account scares many. I won't mention the name of the hospital in Ontario, Canada. But I will talk about room 466, because I will never be able to forget the moments of horror I experienced inside that room. This event happened 16 years ago, but it's still alive in my memory as if it had happened recently. My name is Jackson Noah. Allow me to tell my life story. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, while my team was resting after performing a long surgery, I was summoned to the recovery room to try to resuscitate a patient who appeared to be dying. When we arrived in the recovery room, there were 4 other patients present, along with some other doctors and nurses. At that moment, all the professionals were focused on the patient's resuscitation. I asked everyone to step back, as I wanted full control of the situation with my team. So, the other residents and nurses stepped aside and just observed. I instructed my team that we would attempt to resuscitate the patient for 30 consecutive minutes, taking turns among the more experienced members of my team. 30 minutes, which is the maximum time determined by the medical council to attempt resuscitation. Beyond that time, it is recommended to declare the patient deceased immediately. After reaching the 30-minute limit, unfortunately, we were unable to resuscitate the patient, but I gave an order to my team, instructing them not to stop trying to resuscitate the patient, and that I would extend the time to 45 minutes. So we continued trying to revive him. My desperate attempt to save that man was directly linked to the promise I made to his family a few days earlier to reassure them. On that occasion, before his operation, I told his relatives that the patient's procedure was something simple, and that he would be back home in a few days. After numerous frustrated attempts to resuscitate the patient, at 4:52 in the morning, his death was declared. After we declared his death, we stayed in the room discussing what could have gone wrong during the operation. That's when, suddenly, the man who was supposedly declared dead started moving and whispering as if trying to say something. As many know, we doctors, for the most part, are quite skeptical, and we know that people can exhibit involuntary movements after death, and occasionally this happens. But that man started moving a bit more than we were used to seeing. After the man who was supposedly dead threatened to get up from his bed, the room quickly emptied. Even the critically ill patients managed to leave the room because they were frightened. At that moment, even though I was very scared, for some reason my legs were glued to the floor, and I couldn't leave the room like the others did. When I looked around, I realized I was completely alone in the room with the man who was supposedly dead. At that moment, something terrifying happened because the man who was supposedly dead got up from his bed, took 4 steps towards me, grabbed my coat firmly and said, "Be kind to others, for life does not end here." I was so afraid of witnessing that situation that I ended up wetting myself and my legs wouldn't stop trembling. But the worst was yet to come. Right after he said those words, he simply fell to the ground, now truly looking dead. That's when a black smoke came out of the bathroom and moved towards the body of the man lying on the floor. My brain at that moment couldn't process and understand what my eyes were seeing, so I couldn't react at all. Soon after, that black smoke took the shape of a person and, approaching the body, put its hands towards the man's heart and literally ripped his soul out of his body. While the evil spirit took his soul towards some sort of door that opened with thousands of other evil spirits inside, screaming words of bitterness and hatred, the man's soul cried for help, saying he regretted all the harm he caused to his family and others, and that he didn't want to go to the place they were taking him. All this happened right after I graduated from medical school, as it was my first job as a doctor after finishing college. I won't mention the name of this hospital located in Ontario, but I'm sure this account will reach other people who were present at the hospital that day and will remember me and everything that happened.